Hello, my name is Jamila McMallow, and I'm a mindset coach and relationship expert. And I want to welcome you to this incredible 5-part series training that I've put together on healing your daddy issues. Why? Because this is the foundational piece that is so incredibly necessary when it comes to doing your healing work in order to have happy, healthy relationships with good men. Now, part one is all centered around when your father wasn't around. Now, even though the focus of this training is on women who are now single because of divorce, the truth is, whether you're single and have never been married, whether you're currently married, if you grew up in a home where your father was not around, this training is going to benefit you. And the purpose is really to help you to start to be able to identify how the impact of his absence affected how you are showing up in your relationships with men, even the type of men you are attracting. And so I'm going to be breaking it down over the next 5 parts of this series. So you definitely don't want to miss not a single piece. Okay. So let's get into it. So first and foremost, for those of you that don't know much about me, I actually have over 20 years coaching and mentoring experience in a variety of professional settings. And I have been focused here on this space of transformational coaching, helping women specifically since 2018. Now, if you consider helping women change their physical bodies, like through fitness and health and nutrition, then technically I've actually been transformational coaching since 2010. So even longer. The point is I have a lot of years of experience helping women work through the mindset, emotional, and relationship challenges that they have that are keeping them from getting to where it is that they want to be in their personal life. The women that I typically work with are ones who have built a successful career or a successful business, and so they're financially thriving. And so it's a frustration to be able to experience success professionally, but then to not have the personal life that matches or that's on the same level. And so, just to give you a little bit more detail about my background, my story, why I'm so passionate about what it is that I do, is because I myself was in a toxic marriage for 14 years, which ended in a painful divorce. And it was that divorce that really shook the foundation of who it was that I thought I was supposed to be doing, life, everything, right? And so even though it was painful, I really look at it as like one of the pivotal moments in my life where I shifted and became a different version of myself. And let me tell you, the process of healing that I went through, I today take my clients through something very similar, although more streamlined, a lot deeper and way more effective, right? So let me just tell you, after I went through my divorce, of course, I grieved that relationship, but then I decided that I did want to be in a new relationship. And I knew that I could not pray for the blessing of a wonderful husband and then myself not be a blessing, but I wasn't going to get blessed and then he get cursed, right? So I knew there were things that I had to do, to work on myself. Number one was really figuring out how I got into that relationship that I had been in with my ex-husband, because my whole thinking was, okay, I want to make sure I never do that again. I want to change whatever it is I need to change about me so that I never get into another relationship with a man like that again. Okay. And so that was step one, is focusing inward on me and really healing these deeper childhood traumas and things, and identifying my own relationship attraction pattern and changing it, and now setting myself up for success as far as not only attracting a good man, but then understanding how to function in a happy, healthy relationship. And so it's through that process that I went through that I actually positioned myself to meet my husband, who is this wonderful man that you see pictured here. And we now are raising our son and our daughter, and we've been married for almost a decade. And, again, this process, my Get Real and Heal process, is what changed my life. And so I'm honestly my first and best testimonial. And, I feel like if you're going to call yourself, helping others, you need to have traversed the path. You need to have gone on that journey. And I have. And so I share that with you so that you understand that I'm not somebody who's just sharing with you from book knowledge or something I've picked up off the internet. No, I've lived it. I've been through it. I don't ask my clients to do anything that I myself haven't done already. First, I lead the way. Okay. So let's get into our training. Now, before we get into the nuts and bolts, I want to share a client story with you. I want you to take a look at this testimonial from my client, Kelly. I'm going to go ahead and go over here and play her testimonial video, and then I will be right back. Okay.
Hi, my name is Kelly Holbrook, and I am a salon owner and entrepreneur. And I recently went through a divorce. And throughout the divorce, I started this healing journey. And the issues that brought on the divorce brought me to the place where I wanted to heal from different things. But I just felt like I kept getting stuck. Like I was doing the work. And, I had life coaches, I had therapists, counselors, and I just felt like I kept getting stuck. So I took some time off of work and I just kind of sat and prayed and I was like, what is it? What is it? And it came up that I needed to heal from some issues from my childhood. At that point, it was specifically the issues that I had with my father. And so I went on Google and I, typed up how to heal from your daddy issues. And all of these videos came up, and a bunch of Coach Jamila's videos came up. So I started watching them and I was like, this seems doable. Um, so I dug a little deeper. I looked her up on Instagram. I looked up her website. And I said, maybe I should work with her. And then I was like, well, no, maybe I could just watch the videos and do the videos. Um, but I said, let me just reach out to her and see. So I sent her an instant message or private message on Instagram, and she told me to set up, a discovery call. And we instantly clicked on that discovery call. Um, and I was like, I have to work with her. Because I felt like the description of the services that she offered like fit me perfectly. Like I'm a business owner, newly divorced. I have issues from my childhood from both of my parents, and I want to heal. Like I was ready to heal. I've been actively doing the work, and I felt like I was stuck. And her program really helped me to move beyond that place where I was stuck. And it was quick, it was very aggressive. Um, and I would encourage someone if they are on a mission, especially in their business life, because if your personal life isn't right, your business life isn't going to flourish. You're not going to operate the way that you should be operating in business if you're not right or healed and whole personally. So if you're on in that place where you feel like you're stuck and you have some of those issues from your childhood or from your past, I highly recommend Jamila. One of the biggest outcomes that I've experienced from working with Jamila is this the freedom that I feel. I feel so much lighter. Um, I love myself and I believe in myself. My confidence is growing every day. And that wasn't there before. And I used to tell people, I don't feel confident. I don't feel confident. And there were certain things that I felt more confident in, and there were certain things that I didn't feel confident in at all. And that was one of the things. Like, okay, so when I started with Jamila, my hair was in locks. I had dreadlocks in my hair, and I combed them out, and I feel so free. Um, I feel so much lighter, and it was just like the release. This is another big thing that I got from Jamila, releasing the pain that we hold in our bodies. That's a major tool that I took away from her coaching program. Now when I have issues with people, I either sit at my table and talk it out as if I was talking to that person, or I write it out. I'm more so talk it out. Um, but I know that I can use that. Um, I can go back to that. The tools that she gave me, I feel, were very valuable and helpful, and I can use them in my personal life and in my business life. Um, yeah, I highly recommend Jamila. Um, it was a pleasure and a joy to work with her, and I kind of felt like she's a sister to me now. So thank you, Jamila, for helping me get unstuck. And I try not to use your slogan, but I say that now to people, like, you need to get real and heal. And I feel like Jamila helped me to get real and heal.
All righty. So thankful for that from Kelly, that wonderful testimonial. So let's get back to our training. All right, let me get it here for you guys. All right. So I wanted to share that with you so that you can understand again that this isn't my first rodeo, that I have helped women just like you to heal their daddy issues, move beyond them, and accomplish their dreams and their goals and desires. Okay. So now, when your father was not around, obviously the number one major thing that you experienced was that abandonment. And I'm going to break down how his abandoning the family has affected you, how it's showing up in your relationships today. Now, if you think back to when you were a little girl, you can remember how that felt, right? And that pain and that hurt, but you may not necessarily be able to connect it to what's going on in your life today, in your relationships with men, in your marriage, if you're still married, or if you're divorced and dating or single and dating, what's going on there, the kind of men that you're attracting and how these relationships are going. So first and foremost, when your father abandoned the family, how that can show up is when you get in relationships with men, you're afraid that they will leave. Because remember, that's what you saw. That's what you learned. Men leave. And children have the innate ability to blame themselves for everything. So no doubt as a little girl, somehow you found a way to make that your fault. Maybe you should have been better, been nicer, whatever it was about you, there was something about you that wasn't good enough, wasn't lovable enough to make him stay. And that thing, whatever it is, has stuck with you into adulthood. And so now when you get into these relationships with men, you're afraid that they're going to discover that and they're going to leave you. And so sometimes that can cause you to start getting into the energy of desperation when you're in these relationships because you're willing to do whatever it takes to hang on to that man. And so what can this look like? Well, it can look like putting up with deal-breaking behavior. You know that the things that he's doing are not okay, but you just keep tolerating it. Maybe you are not speaking up when you feel disrespected because you don't want to say the wrong thing, because you don't want to make him upset because, oh no, if I make him upset, maybe he'll leave me. Or you make excuses for him in the name of the benefit of the doubt, even though you know it's a red flag. Okay. But sometimes what'll happen is you'll reason, well, I'm not perfect and I've made mistakes, so I don't want to judge him. Okay. So one of the first impacts how this is going to affect you as a grown woman in your relationships with men. If your father left the family, wasn't around, you probably are dealing with abandonment issues. Okay, so this is just one. I'm going to cover 3 areas. And so abandonment is our first issue. And what I really want you to be doing is to really thinking about, wow, does this sound like me? And whatever resonates with you, and I should have given the caveat, but you ought to know by now, if you've been rolling with me for any length of time, bring a paper and a pen when I start teaching and training. You're going to have a breakthrough. You're going to have an aha. You're going to have an insight. You're going to have your life changed and transformed. Do you understand what I'm saying? So make sure you are paying attention, pausing as needed. But I want you to really, is this sounding like me? And I want you to take some notes. What is that about? Oh my goodness, right? So do you have abandonment issues? And are they showing up in your relationships with men? Are you attracting men? And this is how the relationship is unfolding. Okay. So let's go to our next area. Our next area is when your dad was not around or abandoned the family, he wasn't there. And so a part of you feels like you weren't important enough to him. Something about you, he didn't love you enough to stick around. So you were not lovable enough for him to stick around. Do you understand what I'm saying? And rather than saying there's something flawed in him, you internalize that to mean that there was something flawed in you. And that's why he didn't stick around. You just couldn't keep him. Now, as an adult, you understand that he was a grown man and he made grown man choices and decisions, although immature or whatever. The point is, as a little girl, that's not how you saw things. And see, what I really want you to understand from this 5-part series is that when it comes to your parents, your mother, your father, they couldn't give you what they didn't have, right? So this isn't about blaming them. This isn't about giving you an excuse to go, oh, this is why I am the way I am. Oh yeah, this is why you are the way you are, comma. Now what are you going to do about it? This is to empower you so that you understand why these things are happening to you. So you therefore can take advantage of the solution, so you no longer have to keep experiencing this type of relationship suffering. It's not necessary. You are not doomed, okay? But we have an inborn innate loyalty to our parents. And I need you to understand that it is okay for you to acknowledge your experience. How you experienced both of them, their presence or their absence, had an effect on you, and you have a right to acknowledge your experience. You acknowledging that is not being disrespectful. You acknowledging your experience is not showing that you're ungrateful for what you did have or what they were able to give you. It is simply owning the fact that they were not perfect. Every single human being on the planet has daddy issues and mommy issues and relationship issues from the past before we became aware and healed ourselves. Okay, so let's get real, right? So let's not tiptoe around and act like, oh, well, I had a conversation. No. I don't care if you feel like you've made peace with your adult grown father. The little girl in you is still hurt. And how do you know that? Because she's still showing up in all your romantic relationships with men. Okay, so we're talking about two different things. It's two different things. Don't think that because you had a conversation with your grown adult father and you feel like you've made some sort of peace, that has healed you. It has comforted you, but it has not healed the wounds of that little girl who didn't have a voice to be able to express her true feelings. And let me assure you, you did not tell that man the deep hurt and pain that he truly, really caused you. Because why? That innate loyalty that we have to our parents does not allow us to get to the point to where we say things that we know are actually going to hurt them, that could potentially crush them. And so we hold back. And so that is the journey that I help my clients walk through, because you don't actually need your parents to heal this part of your life. You don't need your father to have a conversation with you for you to heal the issues that you have as a result of him not being around when you were a little girl, okay? You don't need that. If your father is deceased, I would say probably half of my clients, unfortunately, their fathers are deceased. Even if he's deceased, you can still heal these pieces and parts of yourself, because this is really about you, the grown adult version of you, woman of you, standing up, owning where you are, and now giving yourself what you didn't get from your father or your mother. But we're not talking about mommy issues. That's going to be another series I'm going to do. But I just want to break that down for you right now, because I really want you to give yourself permission to get into this. Don't make excuses. Don't minimize. Let's keep it real. Okay. So this unlovable thing, this is a big one, because what it can cause you to do is you can start to act like you are just grateful to have anybody. You're just, because again, remember, you feel like there's something about you that makes you unlovable or unattractive. There's just something about you that, it's just, that turns people off, that makes men leave. That's your belief. It's not true, but that's what you believe. And so that's why you're showing up in this relationship acting like this man is doing you a favor being with you. And so what happens is, when you feel unlovable, you will call yourself showing up, oh, I want this and I want that. But guess what? You're not going to stick to your standards. You will overcompromise. You will, just like when the abandonment, because all these things go together. You'll overcompromise. You'll make excuses for him. You'll gloss over red flags, and you just won't know how to stand your ground, because really, honestly and truthfully, you're not clear on what it is that you want. and you definitely don't think you deserve it. And so you're just trying to make it work with what you have, okay? Another way that feeling unlovable, how this can show up in your adult relationships with men, is when you're in a relationship, you are focused on helping him. You feel like you got to be doing this and that for him, helping him with this in his life and help with this. And by the way, he's not asked you to help him, but you just keep volunteering and signing up because deep down you feel like you have to keep proving to him that you are worthy of his time, love, energy, and attention. As if you decide to stop showing up and trying to be and do all the things, then he's going to leave. Okay. And so that gets exhausting. And another way that being unlovable will show up is that you get easily offended over little stuff and you turn it into something much bigger because you're not, you're too afraid to say the truth, which is that you honestly are scared, that you feel hurt because you feel like he's going to leave. And that's the truth. But you're never going to vulnerably admit or share that. But what you'll do is make a big deal out of small stuff to try to get into some type of argument, to get him to constantly prove to you over and over again that he's invested in the relationship. It usually backfires. It doesn't draw him closer to you. He gets tired of it and then he bounces. Okay. So this is how unlovable can show up in your adult relationships with men. Now, if you're currently married and you're experiencing this, please, 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 you're going to drive your husband crazy if you haven't already. And I want you to understand that I'm speaking to you if you are married to a good man, right? If you're married to a good man, that's wonderful. But you're still showing up in the relationship with these toxic behaviors because of these painful experiences that you had as a little girl that were not your fault. They were not your fault, but now you're a grown woman. And even in this training, in this series, you're developing an awareness. And so now you are empowered now to do something about it so that you can start showing up in a healthy way in your relationship. Okay. Now, our last area is anxiety. Yeah, anxiety. See, when your father abandoned the family and left the home, chances are you may have grown up without a man in the house. Your mother probably worked a lot. If she didn't remarry, or even if she did remarry, sometimes, women, will have a great stepdad, but a lot of my clients, just didn't have that scenario. They didn't have that situation. And so what happens is when you didn't really have the greatest relationship with your father because it was essentially non-existent, what you never really learned was how to interact with men. And so you don't really know what to expect from them. And you don't really feel relaxed or at ease because there wasn't one in your house on a day-to-day basis that you were living with, that you really understand how they are, how they think, how they move, how they do things, how they handle things. You don't understand that. And especially if your mother never got remarried and she was a very independent woman, then you never even learned how to operate as a pair, how to be in a healthy relationship with a man where there's a give and a take, and you're a team. You don't know how to do that. You're used to being independent. That's what was modeled for you. But you're also concerned that you're going to say or do the wrong thing because you don't really know how he's going to react. Because again, you don't have any experience really living with men, not in that capacity. You didn't have that day in, day out example. And you'll also know that you experience this anxiety because you seek advice from other people outside of your relationship all the time. You're always, and maybe it's not a bunch of people, maybe it's just one person or two people that you always go to because you're constantly second guessing yourself. You want to know what their thoughts are, what they think, how do they see that, what do they think about that? Because you don't trust yourself and your own judgment in the relationship. And that's because you don't have a whole lot to work with as far as your background when it comes to men and how to be in a relationship with them, how to communicate with them, all of it. It's something foreign to you. Okay. So those three areas, feeling abandoned, feeling unlovable, and feeling that anxiety are the results of when your father is not around. Okay. Now, I want to share a quick client story with you because I want to just illustrate even further how this can show up, right? So I had a client and her father cheated on her mother, divorced her, left her to be a single mom. He didn't pay for things like he should have. And so they really did without, I mean, they had what they needed, but they weren't living some lavish lifestyle. Whereas on the other hand, he always had money, had houses, cars, motorcycles, multiple girlfriends. And so because of how he did not really care much for them after the divorce, she internalized that she shouldn't expect much from a man. And so she didn't know that, right? We don't consciously, as we're little kids, make these beliefs and then go through life and the belief is in the front. No, it's running in the background like a computer program that's telling us don't expect much from men. And so that was her belief system. And so what do you think happened when she began looking for a husband? Well, of course, she had a low bar. And so because don't expect much from men. And so she got involved with a man and there were multiple red flags, but she kept making excuses for his behavior and she compromised her standards, not really being able to stand in her own power and truth because, again, her dad really wasn't around much, so she really didn't know how to interact with men. She also was just glad to be getting some attention from a man, and so she was happy to be getting married. And unfortunately, and of course, her marriage ended in divorce after years of him neglecting her emotionally, mistreating her, and then ultimately cheating on her as well. Now, obviously, her first mistake was that she chose poorly. She never should have married him, right? But she did have to own the fact that when she was married, her expectations were low. And she never felt comfortable in the relationship to really communicate her feelings in a healthy way. So she basically married someone that she shouldn't have. And then once she was in the relationship, it was kind of like crickets. She didn't know what she was supposed to do. And so it was kind of doomed from the start. And so, of course, she started working with me, and her daddy issues is, of course, the first area that we focused on. And it completely transformed the way that she looks at men and how she sees herself functioning and behaving in relationships with them. So the lesson, if your father abandoned you or was not around when you were growing up, guess what? Those wounds are still there. And that's even if, like I said, you've had some conversation with him as an adult. That great, fantastic. But the wounds are still there. They still need to be healed. And here's the thing. If you don't do your work to heal these wounds, you're going to continue to attract men who confirm your broken beliefs about men and relationships. Like if my client didn't come to me and we worked on healing her daddy issues, she was still going to continue to perpetuate the belief, don't expect much from men, and continuing to attract men who were not going to, sweep her off her feet or blow her mind or any of that. It was just going to be, in low expectations, okay? Because your brain is always going to seek out situations and relationships that are going to prove you right, prove you true. Her relationship attraction pattern was built on that painful trauma of her father abandoning the family and, the belief that don't expect much. Okay. And so that's what she was attracted to. Now, here's what else is going to happen if you don't heal your daddy issues. If he abandoned the family, you're going to continue to show up in an unhealthy way in your relationship. So even if you are in a relationship with a good man or you end up in a relationship with a good man, guess what? You're going to eventually sabotage the relationship because it doesn't fit into your construct of what you believe to be true and possible for you when it comes to men and relationships. Remember, if your father abandoned the family, well, you believe men are going to abandon you. You believe you're unlovable and you have anxiety about being in relationships with men. So if a good man comes along and he's trying to communicate with you in a happy, healthy way, you're not going to know how to handle that. It's going to be like, yikes. And your brain, again, because it's been conditioned to what is toxic, being familiar, that's what you're attracted to. That's your relationship attraction pattern. Because this good man is outside of that, you're really going to feel like a fish out of water. And like I said, you're going to sabotage it until you end up creating the circumstances in your life that your brain says that's what's familiar, even though consciously it's not what you want. Okay. So my Get Real and Heal Your Love Life program, one of the first areas that we focus on is healing your daddy issues. It is really, truly, my program is a process of unraveling that childhood trauma and that past relationship trauma from previous relationships. And the relationship with your father is the first step of the process, right? I use exercises, visualizations, and powerful conversations to help us work through this particular area. And to be quite frank, Most of my clients see results in this area within 1 week. And what's really my secret sauce, or what I'm awesome at, is helping you to quickly identify your relationship attraction pattern, and then literally helping you retrain your brain so that you now are attracted to what's good for you. And now you know how to show up in that relationship as well. So happy and healthy is what now becomes normal to you, not toxicity. You're no longer attracted to toxicity. Okay. So then what you can expect to happen next in part 2 is we're going to continue to break down this topic of healing your daddy issues. We're going to cover when your father was a bad example. How did that impact you? Or how is that impacting you right now, today, in your relationships with men, in the type of men that you're attracting, and even in your current relationship, or if you're married, what's happening? So we're going to go through that as well. And if after this training you feel like, okay, well, I've heard enough, I'm ready, you can book a call with me through my website at coachjamila.com, and we can talk about what working together might look like. So I want to thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in part 2.